Many CELPIP candidates have good English skills, but still score low on the reading test. They struggle to find the correct answers and often don't finish the test before time runs out. High-scoring candidates use a completely different approach. They don't just read and hope they will find the answers. Instead, they use a reading strategy, and that strategy is what gets them to CLB 9, 10, and 12. This is the approach candidates use inside our CELPIP packages. They discover how strategic preparation can make a real difference in their results. In this video, you'll get 12 essential tips for scoring high in CELPIP reading. Part 1, Reading Correspondence. By the end, you'll have a better idea of what it takes to score high in Part 1 and how you can get there. The first tip for scoring high in CELPIP reading Part 1 is to understand exactly what this part involves before test day. Part 1 is called Reading Correspondence, and you have 11 minutes to answer 11 questions. You'll read an email written by one person to another about an everyday social or work situation. Things like colleagues planning a business trip, neighbors discussing a community event, or friends making plans for the weekend. The tone of these emails is conversational and friendly, but not extremely informal, so don't expect slang or very casual language. Then you'll read a short response to that email, and this response has blanks you need to fill in. The questions are split into 2 sets. The first 6 are about the email, and the last 5 are about the response with the blanks. It also helps to know that the 3 question types across the reading test, general meaning, specific information, and inference, all appear in Part 1. General meaning questions ask about the big picture of the email. Specific information questions ask you to locate one particular detail, and inference questions ask you to draw a conclusion about something the writer implies, but doesn't state directly. Knowing this structure in advance can help you feel more prepared when you open Part 1. This allows you to approach both texts with a clearer plan. Tip number 2 is to read the questions before you read the email. This is one of the most powerful time-saving strategies in Part 1. When you read the questions first, you know what you're looking for before your eyes touch the email. Instead of reading everything and hoping the relevant details stick, you're reading with a specific purpose. As you work through the email, you'll immediately recognize the information that matches each question, and you can answer as you go. This turns the reading process into a targeted search rather than a passive exercise. This can make a big difference when you're working under a time limit. Some candidates worry that reading the questions first will slow them down, but the opposite is true. You spend less total time because you only focus on the parts of the email that are relevant to what's being tested. The third tip is to use keywords from each question to find the right section of the email. Once you've read a question, identify 1 or 2 specific words that are likely to appear near the answer. These could be a person's name, a place, a date, or a distinctive noun. Then scan the email for those keywords rather than reading every sentence. For example, if a question mentions a Thursday meeting, scan the email for the word Thursday and read that section carefully. This scanning technique can help you work faster in Part 1. It works especially well because the emails in this section are conversational and well organized. Keep in mind that you might not always find the exact keyword. The email might paraphrase it. However, scanning can still guide your eyes to the right area of the text faster than reading line by line. Now, here is something important. Many CELPIP candidates think that knowing a few reading tips is enough to get a strong result, but it's not enough. To do well in CELPIP reading, you need to understand what each part tests and which strategies to use to find the answers quickly. That's exactly what we teach in our CELPIP packages. Our students get step-by-step guidance on how to approach the reading test effectively, so they feel confident and ready on test day. They learn how the reading parts are designed and what skills they need to find the answers fast. Our CELPIP packages include lessons for all tasks, sample answers, mock tests, templates, and much more. If you want expert guidance for your CELPIP preparation, click the link below to learn more. Tip number 4 is to watch for paraphrases in the answer choices. In part 1, the correct answer will almost never use the exact same words as the email. Instead, it may express the same idea using different vocabulary or a slightly different sentence structure. For example, the email might say, "I'm tied up with a project deadline." The correct answer might say, "The writer is too busy to help." Both mean the same thing, but they look very different on the surface. If you train yourself to look for meaning rather than matching words, you can avoid being fooled by answer choices that use familiar language from the email, but actually say something different. Paraphrasing is a skill that also helps you in the rest of the CELPIP reading test. Developing this awareness in part 1 can give you an advantage across all 4 parts. Tip number 5 is to always identify the writer's purpose and tone early on. The emails in part 1 are conversational and relatively informal, but they usually have a clear reason for being written. This could be to make a request, share news, ask for advice, confirm plans, and so on. Several questions in part 1 will ask you about the writer's purpose, their attitude, or the overall tone of the message. Pay attention to the language the writer uses. Is it apologetic, enthusiastic, concerned, or direct? The tone is usually consistent throughout the email and can help you with inference questions as well. For instance, if the writer uses phrases like, "I'd really appreciate it," or "it would mean a lot to me," that signals a polite and somewhat personal tone. That observation can help you eliminate answer choices that describe the tone as demanding or indifferent. The 6th tip is to be careful about answer choices that use familiar words from the email. This is one of the most common traps in part 1. The test designers often include an answer choice that contains a word or phrase taken directly from the email. However, that answer choice may misrepresent what the email says. Candidates who are reading quickly sometimes pick these answers because the words look familiar and feel right. To avoid this trap, always check whether the answer choice actually matches the meaning of the relevant section of the email, not just the vocabulary. Ask yourself, does this option accurately reflect what the email is saying, or does it just sound familiar? The rule is simple. The right answer expresses the right meaning, not the right words. Keep this in mind, especially when 2 answer choices seem very similar and you're not sure which one to pick. Tip number 7 is to manage your time carefully. You have 11 minutes for 11 questions, which works out to roughly 1 minute per question. If a question is taking too long, make your best guess, mark it mentally, and move on. You can always return to it if time allows. Remember, you won't lose any points for wrong answers in CELPIP reading. You should always have an answer selected for every question, even if it's a guess. Never leave a question blank. By the way, if you want this channel to keep going, write yes in the comments, click like and subscribe. We only make videos that you actually want to watch. Now, let's continue with 5 more essential tips for CELPIP reading. Part 1. Tip number 8 is to understand the structure of the second text before you try to answer the questions about it. The second text is a short response to the email, and it has several blanks where words have been removed. Your job is to choose the best word or phrase to fill in each blank. These questions test whether you understand the meaning of the response and how it connects to the email. Before jumping into the fill-in-the-blank questions, read the entire second text quickly to get a sense of its purpose and flow. Understanding the overall message first makes it much easier to choose the right word for each blank. Candidates who try to fill in each blank without reading the full response first often choose answers that are grammatically possible but don't match the meaning of the overall message. This can lead to critical mistakes, especially with limited time in part 1. The 9th tip is to pay close attention to the tone of the response when answering the fill-in-the-blank questions. Remember that the second text is a reply to the email, so its tone should be appropriate to that context. If the email is friendly and casual, the response should match. If the email is making a serious request, the response should reflect that. When you're choosing between answer options for a blank, eliminate choices that don't fit the overall tone of the response, even if they seem grammatically correct. Tone consistency is an important factor in identifying the right answer for many of these questions. High-scoring candidates develop a strong sense of register, which is the appropriate level of formality. They use this awareness to rule out answer choices that feel off, even when they're not sure exactly why. With practice, this instinct can become faster and more reliable. Tip number 10 is to use the email as a reference when answering questions about the response. The two texts are closely connected. The response is a direct reply to the email, so many of the blanks will only make sense if you understand what was said in the first message. For example, if a blank requires you to choose between accept and decline, you need to check the email to understand what the response is agreeing or disagreeing to. Always treat both texts as a pair rather than two separate reading tasks. Going back to the email for context is not a waste of time. It's part of an effective strategy. In fact, this cross-referencing approach is something high-scoring candidates often use naturally, and it reflects a solid understanding of how correspondence works as a connected exchange rather than two isolated messages. Tip number 11 is to build your vocabulary around the kinds of everyday situations that appear in part 1. The emails in this part deal with social and work situations that most people encounter regularly, such as planning events, discussing schedules, making requests, responding to news, and so on. Candidates who are familiar with the vocabulary used in these contexts find part 1 much easier to navigate. Examples include words like appreciate, confirm, arrange, concern, available, and convenient. When you practice reading emails and informal correspondence in English, you're building the vocabulary you need to read more quickly and accurately in this section. The more familiar the language feels, the faster your brain processes it. One way to build this vocabulary is to read authentic English emails whenever you can, whether at work, in newsletters, or in everyday messages. Over time, you may start to notice repeated patterns and expressions. These are the common patterns that appear in CELPIP Part 1. The 12th and final tip is to always practice Part 1 under time conditions. It's one thing to get all the answers right when you have unlimited time, and it is another thing entirely to do it in 11 minutes. Many candidates find that they understand the material, but struggle with the time pressure. The solution is to practice repeatedly with a timer, so that working quickly becomes natural. Practicing under pressure helps you stay fast and focused. After each attempt, review any questions you got wrong to understand exactly why the correct answer is correct and why the other options are not. This kind of deliberate practice is what helps candidates move from CLB 7 to CLB 9 and above in the reading test. Over time, you may also start to notice patterns in how questions are written and where answers tend to appear. This pattern recognition is one of the most valuable skills you can develop for Part 1. Those are 12 essential tips to help you score high in CELPIP Reading, Part 1. Apply these strategies consistently in your practice, and you may notice improvements in both your speed and your accuracy on test day. If you want expert guidance for your CELPIP preparation, check out our CELPIP packages using the link below. Our packages include step-by-step guidance, mock tests, templates, and other useful resources to help you feel confident on test day. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their CELPIP score too. See you in the next video!